Do you like pie? And you probably have no idea why I'm laughing at the question, do you like pie? It's such a simple question. And yet I bet by the end of this story, it's going to have a different meaning for you. We'll see. Now, I'm going to warn you up front. Towards the end of this tale, there's a little bit of a twist. So you're going to want to stick around to find out what the twist is after you think you know what happened in the story. Anyway. Hi, I'm Dave. This is Old Dad Studio. Today is March 3rd, 2025, and this is vlog number 62 in the series. Now, I thought for today's vlog that I would just share a funny story. It's one of those stories that we have told over and over again throughout the years of our family. And before I do, let me give you a little bit of background for those folks who haven't heard this story before. For myself and my wife, we were both divorced and remarried, and so we both had lives before we were together, and then we have our life together. And the way it works with kids is, in my first marriage, I had two kids, and the youngest was 18 years old when I got divorced, and my wife had four kids in her marriage, and they ranged from ages 8 to 12 when we got together. And then we got together, and then we had one kid. So total, there's 7 kids in our family, and right now they span in ages from 35 all the way down to 7. So we have 7 kids in those ranges. This story has to do with my 2 oldest kids, who are now 35 and soon to be 31. But this was way back when they were younger, and they had to be, I'm guessing the oldest was around 12 years old. And I think I'm guessing it was, maybe he's 13. In that age range anyway. And it's funny because whenever you get together as a family in a car and you're driving somewhere, and we did that a lot of this when they were young. We would go camping, or we would go somewhere, and we would always go as a family. And we did a lot of family things together back then. But we get into a car, and you have your kids trapped with you in this car. And so you can have any kind of conversation you want to have with them, if you can get them to participate. And it was very funny, the dichotomy we had between the 2 boys during the time. And so one day we're just driving along, and the youngest one asked a question, and I don't remember exactly what the question was, but it was something along the lines of sex or condoms or something like that. And the younger one always was curious and would ask questions, and the older one was always like, no, I don't want to hear, don't tell me, I don't want to hear you talk about sex. But the younger one asked a question, and so we got into this conversation about sex, and he continued to ask questions, and we continued to give him answers and have this really, this really good conversation in the car about sex. And we were pretty open, and we just, we had the conversation. We didn't have any qualms at all about answering questions to the boys about sex. But eventually, the older one got sick and tired of us talking about sex, and he wanted us to change the topic. And so he said, you know what? I like pie. Does anybody else in here like pie? I really like pie. And he wanted to change the subject. And so I went along with him, and I said, well, yeah, I like pie. And I did it in as naughty and seductive kind of, voice that I could. And then, of course, everybody, we all broke down, and then we started joking about how we all liked pie. And then he couldn't get away from it. He was beside himself with, everything, you can make everything talk about sex, and so in our family then, the phrase, I like pie, or do you like pie, that became like this inside joke of us talking about sex. And we would use it all the time and drive the older one crazy because, if somebody would say something, we'd be like, well, yeah, do you want some pie with that? And it was just a way to egg him on and have some fun. And over the years, we had a lot of fun with it. But shortly after that event happened in our car, something also happened at our church. Now, back then, we were pretty active in our church. I'm not anymore. I've kind of left religion and organized religion and everything behind. But that's a story for another vlog. We can get into that some other time. But back then, we were still pretty involved in our church. And shortly after that event, our church went through a change where the one pastor had left, and a new pastor decided to come and join us at our congregation. And so they were moving this new pastor in and getting everything set up, and everything was going on, going around and greeting him and having ceremonies and all this kind of fun stuff. And this pastor he was an older pastor, and he had changed churches a few different times, so he kind of knew the routine and had his things that he liked to do and different events that he liked to hold. And one of the things that he had found worked really well for him as he had changed in other churches was to meet small group with the different folks in the congregation. And so he'd have these little small groups and bring people together rather than like just one big organized, welcome party. He wanted to do these little small groups. And so he organized those, and he called them having pie with the pastor. And so we went and had pie with the pastor. And the whole time we were egging each other on with the hey, we're having some pie with the pastor. And he had no idea. Eventually, in the end, we told him the story and let him in on the little family joke. But it was hilarious when we got the notice that, hey, the pastor wants to have some pie. All right. Anyway, so now going forward, anytime you hear somebody ask about pie, or would you like to have some pie, or hey, there's some apple pie, or hey, it's Thanksgiving, let's have some pumpkin pie. You now are part of the inside joke of our family and what pie really means. All right. That's it for today. It was just a quick one, just a fun story. And I will see you tomorrow.